What we're going to look at is the fundamentals of Bujinkan Budo Taijutsu. The fundamentals are the reason why techniques were created or invented to show the essence or the principles behind the techniques. So we'll look at something as simple as a posture that is used in Gyokoryu, which is one of the 9 traditions that make up the Bujinkan Budo Taijutsu system, and why they wrote down in the scrolls Ichimonji no Kamae as one of the postures for combat in the Gyokoryu system. So let me step back and look at the floor here. What we all realize is that when you're facing an attacker, having your feet pointed at the attacker so that all of your soft targets are available is probably a bad thing. But we also know that standing sideways to the attacker so your feet is at a 90-degree angle to the attacker protects all of your targets, but it takes away 2 of your best weapons, your right leg and right arm. So somewhere between having your feet pointed directly at your opponent and pointed away from your opponent is probably the optimum position to put your feet. So let's look at the posture Ichimonji no Kamae from the ground up. So let's say we want to point one foot at the bad guy's spine or your opponent's spine. The other one you want 90 degrees from that position. And the reason that you want to do that is that, again, it's a combination of facing forward so that you can use all of your weapons and facing 90 degrees from him where your targets are protected, but you've limited your weapons to just the 2 that are closest to your opponent. So if this is the situation where we point 1 foot away and 1 foot towards, that takes our targets and puts them at a 45-degree angle, which probably optimizes the protection of them, but you can still use your rear leg and foot in the battle without having to turn your spine or without too much energy. So this is the footwork of Ichimonji no Kamae. Now it's important to line up the inside of the foot and the heel of your back foot to the spine of your opponent. The reason is, if I start bringing this foot more out this way, I start offering him my targets more and more and more. So I want to keep that heel alignment if I can. If I start bringing this back this way, I've taken, again, my right arm and leg out of the combat, and I don't want to limit myself as far as what kind of weapons I can enter into the fray. So optimally, you have 1 foot pointing 90 degrees, 1 foot pointing at the bad guy. This offers maximum protection to your targets and allows you to have all of your weapons in the game. One more thing on where the position of the feet should be is when I step back into this Ichimonji type posture, my foot is a little more angled rearward than 90 degrees because when I stand, my feet are pointed out slightly, not directly forward, but pointed out slightly. Some people naturally stand with their feet pointed more out. So when they step back in this posture, their feet will probably be more pointed backwards than mine is this way. And that's okay because that just adapts to the natural spin or natural twist of a person's leg that goes out. Those people who stand pigeon-toed, when they do this posture, their foot may be a little bit more forward. Either one of those is okay because that adapts for just your natural body alignment, the way your legs naturally work. Don't try to put your feet exactly in the angle that mine's at unless you stand like I do. So don't worry about the angle of the foot. What's important is the alignment of the heels so that you're not offering targets to your opponent and you're not limiting yourself as to how many weapons you have in the fight. Let's move up from the ankles or up from the feet to the position of the lower legs or the shins or how the knees relate to the feet. In the beginning, or when it first came to America, we were kind of taught to keep our feet outside, the front foot outside the knee. I've worked with that a long time and that just hasn't worked for me, so what I have decided to do with my body is to keep the knee or the foot at least under the knee or maybe even inside the knee, because from here if I have to move backwards it's very difficult for me to move, and mobility in a physically violent conversation is critical. The way that I can keep mobility better or easier is to keep my knee at least over my foot, maybe even outside my ankle a little bit, but that's where I suggest that you put it because of mobility. You can jump quicker, you can move quicker, you can go backwards with a push, you can go forwards with a push, your balance is better. I think it works out a lot better. Any questions on that? One of the other things about keeping your knee in a natural alignment with your foot is some people aren't flexible enough to keep their hips spread this way. So what ends up happening is their leg is on their knee comes inside their foot, and now the alignment of the leg is not, the natural alignment of the leg is not correct. You really need to work on your flexibility to a point that the knee stays in alignment with the toe. Same thing with the back leg. This is the one that is more often the problem for people when they're first learning this Ichimonji Kamae, is that this leg isn't flexible, the hip isn't flexible enough, and the knee gets inside the foot, so that in actuality, if they were on ice, their foot would be slipping out. You really want the knee directly over the feet so the pressure, even on ice, is going directly into the ground rather than along the ground. That's going to be important for your balance, especially when you're moving around on a slippery surface. So if I'm this way, it's really difficult for me to go that way until I push with my foot or until I reposition my foot, and that's called a stutter step, and those will get you killed because you don't have time to take these extra steps, or fights happen in hundreds of seconds, not tenths of seconds. So if I have to go down to get out of there, that down motion is too long. I need to be in whatever position that I can be in to go forward or to go back or to step and not have to bring this foot forward to step or to move forward. So create whatever bend is in your legs that naturally allows you to move in any direction with about the same amount of energy. After the bend in your thighs, after you get that, what I recommend is putting your weight right in the center of your feet and then just lowering your body to whatever bend in the legs that you decide you want, whatever's comfortable for you. I think that's what you should do. It's been my experience that if you lean back on one leg, it blows this thigh out, it starts to shake, it loses all of its energy, and therefore that takes away some of your mobility because you now this leg is fatigued and you don't have as much mobility, much kicking power, much jumping power, things like that with this leg because you purposefully burned it out by putting weight on it. So don't give him any advantage that he can't take for himself. So I recommend that you keep your weight in the center, and just simply by raising your hands to put your weapons between you and the bad guy, that naturally, if you'll watch the line where my spine is, that naturally shifts you back a little bit, and that's all the shifting you're going to need. Don't purposefully pull your weight back. You want to keep your hips in between your feet and in a natural state. You're not trying to push them in, you're not trying to pull them out. Try not to let your butt stick out this way. That just means your hips are not flexible enough to stay in a natural state. And just bend and put your back very natural. Most of postures, most of the techniques are done from the waist down. If you can get that part, everything else becomes a lot easier. Standing. So if you just step back into posture, lower your posture, and raise your arms, when you're hitting, for instance, whack like this, if you drop your arms and then straighten up your legs, you ought to be at that same natural position. You shouldn't be leaning forward. It's not as if you're hitting like this and you did this. If I drop my hands and then stand up, this creates tension in your body. It creates misalignment in your body, and this causes you to use more energy than is necessary to affect the same hit, same punch, same kick. So I don't recommend that. From here, you want to hit, and so that if you drop your arms and just put your feet back under you, your back is aligned as if it's natural standing posture. That way, you're not using any extra energy. Also, if I can borrow an assistant here, if I punch this person and I lean out over my leg to create this kind of punching dynamics, am I in range? Can you hit me with one hand or the other? Sure. So I'm going to show you how to, by adjusting your back, not your punching arm, but your back, how to get out of range. So if I just leave my shoulder and arm where it is, it stays in neutral. So that's why this hand is here. And again, it's over the elbow because it protects the box from one side to the other. This hand also protects the box from one side to the other. Okay, one of the last things I want you to think about is, now that we've got the feet, knees, legs, hips, back, shoulders, hands, arms, everything else, it's important where your head is aligned, and it offers a particular emotion to your opponent that you need to understand. Because if I'm doing a posture and I'm looking at this person and I'm thinking I'm going to hurt this person poorly or badly with this, my nose over here, I'm going to try to change just the angle of my head and see if you through the camera can get any different sense of will by changing just one thing. So if I'm looking this way and I change this one thing, does that give you a different feeling that I'm going to be in the fight for the duration, regardless of how long it takes, regardless of what is necessary to accomplish the mission? So if I'm here and I'm looking at you across my eyes, that should give you a different feeling than looking directly at you and no other feature of the face is changed. Okay? So now where the head is positioned becomes very important if you're trying to can even tell yourself that you're going to be in this fight forever until it's over, until you're safe or your family or the group, the team, whatever that you're working with is safe. This is going to be important for you to not have your head in a position where physically, maybe subconsciously, you're wanting to get out of there. So what you have to do is get your head into the game and be there rather than here. So the only thing I'm changing is the angle of my head in reference to the bad guy. From here I go that should give you a different feeling if as you're looking at my face through the camera. Should. The other last part that I want you to think about is how do you visualize the opponent? Some people say you watch the chest, some people say you watch the hips, some people say you look at their eyes, some people say you look at the forehead. All of that is fine, but it's been my experience, especially in tactical training, that you don't want to focus on any one thing. What you want to do is look at the person as if you're talking to him. In other words, you don't want to have to get into a martial arts vision. You don't want to have to focus your eyes differently when you're fighting than when you do when you're just naturally moving around, because then that's another thing that you got to click into action that you don't want to have to fool with. What if it's dark and you can't see his eyes, you can't see his chest? Now what do you do with that? So the idea is look at the person as if you're talking to him, so nothing about that has to change. It's already doing what you naturally do well, because if you start looking at the person's eyes, then you tend to get tunnel vision and everything outside of his head or face or shoulders goes away. You cannot afford to do that in a tactical situation. You must be able to be aware of whatever is around you, how many friends he has, the tools that are available, escape routes, tables, gullies, whatever. You have to be able to look at all things. So if you start focusing on any one thing, it takes away your vision. I don't think that you want to give the bad guy that kind of an advantage where you're not aware of his friends that are coming up behind you or coming up from beside you. So just look at him as if you're talking to him, and then keep that kind of vision, and that will allow you to see more of the whole area and the whole situation. I think that'll help you a lot. Next, what I want to look at is this concept that I have developed called the box. It's very similar to what I think it's very similar to what Hatsumi Sensei calls kukan, or the space between your attacker or your opponent and yourself. It has to do with more than just distance. It has to do with more than just air between you and the bad guy. It has to do with interval. It has to do with the timing that it takes to cross that interval. It has to do with the actual space. It has to do with, if you're in some kind of a posture, it has to do with the space and the outline of the shape of his body so that I can match that shape if I want to get inside of it. It has to, because I don't want to match this shape because then he can stop it. So it has to do with somehow matching the shape of what he's giving me. This is what I'm going to call the box, and the box is a very elementary concept of this kukan. The box, we're going to say, is from the top of your opponent's head out to his shoulders, down the width of his shoulders to his feet, along the ground, up the outside of your shoulders to the top of your head. That box is what's going to be important. Anything else that happens outside of this box, anywhere in the universe, doesn't count. because it has to happen in this box if this person is going to hurt you. Of course, if there's 2 people that you're fighting, you have 2 boxes. 3 people, 4 boxes. There are 3 boxes. 4 people, 4 boxes. So what you want to do is, if I can control this space, if I can control the box, the distance and this area between him and me, I have the advantage. Because he's going to have to go around the box to get to me. When he goes around the box, if you do a swing like that, none of this is important until it gets inside my shoulder, inside the box, inside the line between the outside of my shoulder and the outside of his shoulder. Because if it's out here, it can't hurt me. If I punch like this outside his shoulder, he did the right technique. It can't hurt him. It's when that punch or that attack comes inside the box, he either has to move the box or block, attack, defend it somehow inside the box. So this box is going to be critical in how you actually guard yourself in a fight. And that's why I was saying earlier is that this hand goes from this side to that side of the box. This hand goes from this side to this side of the box. So you really are truly creating a defense with your weapons, and so that they can do damage whenever you need them to. If he's punching, I don't want to take my hand outside the box this way, because now there's an opening. Now I've created some kind of a possibility. Doesn't mean he will take advantage of it, but the possibility he could take advantage of this opening I've given him. So given the same attack, the concept of the box is I want to hit it outside the box, but so that if the punch keeps coming, it misses because it's just outside the box. I'm not trying to make it move 4 or 5 or 6 or 12 inches outside the box. That's unimportant. If it just skitters by his head, it's a miss. So from here, I want to guard the box, and as he comes in, I just want to make him miss and then be close enough to counter. So I want to be very concerned about the box, and I want to protect that. It also, you can't offer too much outside of the danger zone. Inside this box, see, if we're at this distance, we can't fight because it's too far away. This is not realistic fight distance. So we still have a box that we have to be concerned with because he may have a knife or a gun or something like that. But at this distance, we can't fist fight. So what we have to worry about inside the box is this danger zone, this red zone, which goes out to about the length of my arms, or the length of his arms, if his arms are longer than mine. So what I want to do is anything that gets inside this danger zone or this red zone, I just want to kill it. I want to hit it as hard as I can hit it and make it not want to get back in that danger zone. So if we're moving around a little bit and doing this, and as that punch comes in, I want to kill it right there and then be able to counter or do whatever is appropriate for that action. If it's coming in, I can get out of the way and hit, because now that's in my danger zone. That's in my reach. And I still want to control this box, because even though the shape is now funny, it's not straight, smooth lines. Now the box is shaped like this. I still want to be able to control this area between him and me. Do you understand? So that's the part that I want to be able to control, and I can do that by the punch comes in and I just slide out of it. Now we still have the box, but the box is here and he's out of position. I'm behind him, but we still have this box that we want to be concerned with, because this arm comes back, boom, that's where the danger zone is. He can't hurt me with this elbow or a foot or anything until it crosses that space in the box. Do you understand what I'm saying? One other thing on the footwork that I wanted to mention is that it's important not to just keep your leg between your opponent and his spine, but it's important to keep your foot pointed at his spine. Because if you can see that this alignment of my heels is correct, my natural body relaxed natural state is where he's in front of my arms. If I take my front foot and move it as little as 30 degrees to the inside this way, watch what this does as far as my alignment with the bad guy. I pick my foot up and do this. Now my body naturally wants to align where I have put him behind me, which is not where I'd like him to be. So simply by moving this foot to the inside a few degrees has given him a tactical advantage that he hasn't taken for himself. So I don't want to do that. So I want to keep this alignment so that When I bring my hands up, it's a natural way to keep my weapons between me and the bad guy without, if my foot is here, without having to strain my spine to get my weapons between me and the bad guy. Is that understood? Okay, one of the concepts that I want to illustrate in training versus combat is combat distance. I'm going to show you a timing drill here to show you how fast actual combat happens and why distance is important. What I'm going to do is I'm going to have Mundo here. I'm going to be at more than arm's distance, and as I try to step out and grab the knife, what I want him to do is just roll his hand out of the way when he sees me coming so I can't grab the knife. If he can keep me from grabbing the knife, that's what I want him to do. Now I want to show you that if I change this distance, this distance that I'm at, just 4 inches, how that changes the timing of the whole situation. So I'm going to move my toes about 4 inches so that now I can grab the knife without stepping. Okay, that much distance and that difference in timing is the difference between living and dying in a lot of cases, because fights happen that fast. So if I can keep my opponent at this distance, I have a really good chance, because he has to step to hit me. If we get in here where we can actually touch each other without moving our feet, it's a grease lightning kind of thing. Now, from this distance, a lot of elbows won't leave your side, because a lot of this is coming from your ankles or from spine twist, and your elbows aren't going very many places. So these punches are really strong. And a lot of times you'll hit like this, boom, and then get out of there so that you can create distance and see if, because you're safer out here. Because if I can hit him, he can hit me. That's why fighting's dangerous. So what I want to do is, if I can, maintain a distance like this where I'm gauging. He can't hit me from here. That's this, oh sir, I don't want to fight situation. So he has to step to hit me from here. Or I can give him this and put it in his eyes so he has to deal with it, and then I can take it, because now I've changed the timing, the interval of this. We're still at the same distance where I can't touch him and he can't touch me, but I'm going to change the distance by the interval with which I can cross the distance. So distance is important, but on another peeling of the onion layer, interval is what is more important. So if he grabs that hand, I use that to take his consciousness to this hand, and then I sneak attack him with this hand, although it's the same distance. And from here, if I didn't distract him like that, just hitting him, he'd be able to get out of the way. So I have to do something to take his mind away from this hand. Hey, buddy, I don't want to fight. Pop! Right there. That kind of situation. Do you understand what I'm saying? So there is a distance relationship to the timing of the fight. So there's more than just speed. There's more than just distance. It's more of a timing of how you hit his attacks, a timing of how you get away, and then an interval, a changing of the interval. It was used to be said years and years ago in this art, it was called Mae, which is M-A-A-I in Japanese, and it means interval / space / distance, kind of a concept. It's not just a one-dimensional concept. So it's important to understand the interval of the fight rather than just the space and the distance. Okay, now that we've covered that concept, is there any question on that concept of distancing and interval and so forth? Yes, why don't you come up here and ask it?
Since we understand distance, how does interval actually fit into distance?
Okay, distance is like the basic form or the basic principle. Interval is one onion layer or an advanced understanding of distance. Because if you stand there and I stand here, if I can maintain this distance, you can be tougher, meaner, more agile, more experience, all things. You can have every advantage to me, but if I can maintain this distance, you can't hurt me. So if the only thing that I can control is distance, you've got to create a huge way of crossing that distance to get to me, and that takes time, and that's where the interval comes in, because it's like the second dimension of distance, because all distance has a coordinate of time, has an aspect of time. That's where the interval part comes in. Okay, does that answer your question?
That does. Thank you.
Terrific. Okay. Anytime. Okay, some of the dynamics of this Ichimonji kata. This is one of the basic techniques of Gyokoryu. So a lot of this is, there's a lot of fundamentals in this one kata. So if we just start initially, actually the way we started is not fight distance. This would never happen, but it's good training distance because it makes both people feel safe, and that's one of the important principles of learning. Because if you've done boxing or wrestling or something like that, you can relax, before, and this gets, the training becomes dangerous, you're going to revert back to whatever has kept you safe in the past, and that doesn't lend itself to learning. It lends itself to surviving. So there's a certain amount of safety that is required in the training for you to actually learn things. So this distance that we set up at is a training distance, and it helps keep both parties feeling like they're safe. And then as he comes into a punch to the face, the actual movement is a 45-degree angle away, hit to the arm to make it deflect, to create some pain, some damage to it, so he has to think about that. Still maintaining this Ichimonji handwork so that all of my weapons are still between me and the bad guy. Then I want to step so that I'm equal distance between his shoulders, and then I can pivot and create power by bringing this hip around and hitting with this elbow at the same time, so the body is coordinated. Notice how the foot is still lines up with his spine. And then I want to create distance into this Zanshin to see if he's still alive, see if he still wants to fight, see if there's any fight left in the dog. So the concept is, this is what protects you. This is what protects you, this movement. That's protect you. Boom. That is what injures or attacks what he's giving you. Okay? So I'm not trying to stand here and hit this out of the way. Because let's say that I'm faster than him, I'm a better athlete than him, I'm stronger than he is, I'm just cool. So when he comes in with that punch and I'm faster, and I go, well, it didn't help me much because I wasn't out of the way of the attack. So what you want to do is your feet should defend you, that your hands should attack. Okay? So from here, once I hit here, I can guard his spine and my spine, and then hit, and then get out of the way, and wait on the next attack if there is one. Okay. Cross step. This Yoko Uruki footwork. From here, once the punch comes in, I'm stepping out, realigning myself, cross-stepping, still keeping the foot pointed at his spine, so that allows me to turn and come in with a pivoting action around the spine with balance. Okay? Yoko Uruki footwork, this cross-stepping action is critical. One of the senior instructors in the Bujinkan 15 years ago said that if you do not understand this Yoko Uruki, or sideways walking footwork, if you don't get that, if you're not good at that one thing, your taijutsu will never be any good. That means that this is the granite rock bottom basic thing you have to know if it affects all other things. So this Yoko Uruki footwork is critical that you understand it and use it.